Here's a report from the BBC News. It was 11th of December 2007. And it's written by some character up in this particular world where they're creating all this stuff. And this is a form of predictive programming where they tell you a blatant truth, but they don't give it any negative connotations at all. And it's called Exodus to Virtual Worlds Predicted. The appeal of online virtual worlds such as Second Life is such that it may trigger an exodus of people seeking to disappear from reality. And again, here's that term, the holy term, you've been taught as holy. An expert on large-scale online games has said. Virtual worlds has seen huge growth since it became mainstream in the early years of this decade, developing out of massive multiplayer role-playing games. So it's role-playing games, you see. It says, and the online economies in some match those of real-world countries. Again, a duplicate. The draw is such that they could have a profound effect on some parts of society. Edward Castronova, I love the names they give these people, Edward Castronova, Associate Professor in the Department of Telecommunications at Indiana University, told BBC World Service's Digital Planet program. I think I'm going digital. My guess is that the impact on real world really is going to involve folks disappearing from reality in a lot of places where we see them, he said. Varying involvement, Dr. Castronova, who's written a book on the subject, one of many, I'm sure there's a whole plethora of them emerging on the shelves right now, written a book on the subject entitled Exodus to the Virtual World. Here we go. We're the slaves escaping into worse slavery here, to the virtual world, drew parallels to the 1600s when thousands of people left Britain for a new life in North America. This is how they want to compare it to you. That's certainly changed North America, and that's usually what we focus on, but it's certainly changed the UK as well, he said. What I tried to do in this book is say, listen, even if the typical reader doesn't spend any time in virtual worlds, what is going to be the impact of of people going and doing this? And he predicted that everyone will be involved in a virtual environment. Now, here you are. Everyone, that's like everyone, will be involved in a virtual environment within 10 years, although the level of that involvement will vary. He said, while some people will be colonists, see how the terms are given, you're a pioneer, the virtual frontier opens up and off they go and disappear. Others will just use virtual worlds to get together with distant family and friends, as to give presents there, so they're really there as you chat to each other. But he stressed there will be a group of people that spends all their lives there, and that the big question is the size of this group. And I'll be back with more on this particular topic after the following messages. Hi, Alan Watt. We're back with Cutting Through the Matrix and exposing this matrix. It's pretty well here already. Whenever they announce something that's coming, it's here. And believe you me, there's nothing to iron out. There's no bugs to iron out in it. It's all been done a while ago. That's how it's always done. We're the last to be told any truth. And we're told through little exposés like this one, the one that's been printed at the BBC and published, and the book that this particular character is flogging to us, predictive programming. It says here, escape and refuge. The appeal, he said, is not for those in a good job, but for those working low-paid, low-skilled jobs. You know, the losers, he's telling me here, that's what this means. It's like a fix-up house or a handyman special. It means you're a loser. That's what they mean by that. Would you rather be a Starbucks worker or a starship's captain, he said. Oh, my goodness, what a choice to make, eh? I wonder what one I'd pick. But he also stressed that since virtual worlds are social, he sees increased interaction in them It's a step forward. They're telling you, in other words, that life is so boring, fearful, and awful that people will just love this virtual world. And doesn't this echo exactly the speech that Aldous Huxley gave at Berkeley University? You can look into my website, it's on there in the archives in the audio section, where he said that most people are unhappy with their lives. And then he goes on to explain why they could justify basically programming us and running our lives for us and making us happy with drugs or electrical stimuli or something exact same, because it's the same guys behind it all. This is an old agenda. So this guy goes on to say, this character here, he says, he also stressed that since virtual worlds are social, they're social, these virtual worlds. Everybody's nice, all politically correct, and no blemishes, as I say, so your eyes won't be offended by a pimple or a wart or something. He says, but he also stressed that since they're social, he sees increased interaction in them as a step forward. Well, yeah, you're right. You can move forward to the edge of a cliff very easily. They never explain progress, do they? They just mention the term, and this is a step forward. And he also highlighted the difference between seeing them as an escape and as a refuge. Oh, we'll just go into a refuge. You know, the word heaven used to be the refuge, and it came from a haven. A safe haven is where you brought your ship in from the rough seas. Same old deal, sold under another guise. And he also highlighted the difference between seeing them as an escape and a refuge. If reality is a bad thing, or reality is a bad thing, and they make sure it is, don't they? And people are going into virtual worlds to reconnect. You're going in to reconnect. The trick of the electric. The word you would deploy is refuge. Refuge, he said. We're all refugees going into a virtual world. A father of two spending 90 hours a week in a virtual world because he doesn't like his wife, I would say that's escapism, and it isn't anything you would say is good. See the baby talk? It's almost like the child talk. That's how they speak to us now. That's how they did it in the Soviet Union. It's all here. But if it's a heavy-set girl from a small town who gets victimized just because her body isn't the right kind of body, you know, the Hollywood type, and she goes online to make friends because she can't get a fair shake in the real world, then I would say the virtual world is more of a refuge. It's more of a refuge. Mind you, if you took the wrong kind of dope, they'd be banging on your doors and pulling you off to prison. But this is better, you see. Making you crazy and mad, as long as they control it, is better. Isn't that something, boys and girls? So there you go. A virtual world coming to a place near you. And they have a little picture on this particular article of the three boob babes, the virtual three boob babes. They're all perfect. As I say, there's not a hair out of place. There's not a blemish on the skin. They're all just so perfect. You see, something you can't have in the real world. So we'll see how many refugees there are that escape into this, and I do predict there'll be lots of them. And the more they step up the fear factor, and this is the key to it all, they create our system, they keep us under stress, and people will go into this in droves as predicted. Now we've got Timothy from Massachusetts on the line. Are you there, Timothy?
Hey, Alan.
Hello.
I just wanted to get your comments on Hayek's book, The Road to Serfdom, because he seems to cover a lot of what you discuss.
Which book is that?
The Road to Serfdom.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just curious, because the copy I have is from 1944, and I guess one of the NGOs just has this big series out, and they've rediscovered it. And this book was such a huge hit, supposedly, with economists at the time. And if you read the book, it's really got nothing about that, and it's just completely is, you know, the chapters in there are why do the bad, worst people rise to the top, and, you know, the rule of law, and and, you know, it takes a lot of reading to get through it, because, of course, it's, you know, written so sheep like me don't understand it, but I just was curious if you had read it and what your comments were on it.
Well, I've read that, and I got that book and a whole bunch of books on similar topics that I couldn't find, in fact, in the bookstores, from a bank that had thrown them all out, and this is for their higher employees. This is actually not a bank, but it was the banking tower where this main branch of the bank was installed. And I was surprised. They had all of these kind of books there, and that was one of them. And you're quite right. They read those ones at the top of these economic structures, because it's important to understand how their world works for them and how to manipulate even further to the next step. Hold on, I'll be back after the following messages.
Okay.
You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network, because you can handle the truth.
Hi, I'm back with Cutting Through the Matrix, and we're talking to Timothy about a particular book, one of many books published on the system, the real system as it really does exist, not as the way it's promoted through propaganda, which is entertainment, to the general public. And you'll find if you do go through the newspapers, look for book sales, because they're really dumping books like crazy, and they have been for the last 10 years. Look for books that are being dumped by the big banking foundation. They're towers, really. They're headquarters in cities, because you get an awful lot of stuff there you generally can't get made available to the general public because they're too expensive to buy.
Right.
Some of the books out there, are $500 even for a new copy or a reprint.
Because the masses aren't supposed to be reading that stuff.
Yeah, that's right. And you'll find the same thing with some of the books for Bertrand Russell and others of that ilk. There's a foundation, and they give out new books, and it'll cost you $500-600 for one paperback.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you're not supposed to read the kind of material when they talk to their own peer group. That's for their peer group, and it's dangerous reading material for the general public if they can understand it.
And I had, I always get a lot of questions, but, I've, been doing a lot of reading myself, and I just don't understand really what we're supposed to do. My only conclusion I've come to is knowing how it works is better than going through life, following your shepherd blindly, I guess.
Yeah, most people are literally going from a conditioned physical world, where they've already been conditioned not to ask questions and not to even notice what's really around them, one virtual reality into another virtual reality. Only this time you'll leave your body behind. Your body is going to be a battery. That's how it will be used. You'll be a robot that they can then use to do any function they wish, and you will never know what's happening. You'll be in the other world, having a great old time to yourself, you think. And that's on the cards. So if they can make people unhappy enough, they'll go towards this in droves. And they already are doing it to the children. There's games there, it says, create a 3D avatar. Hang out with friends. You make the friends who they are. You create them. Play games, build a home, design and sell things, and pick the car of your dreams. There are people now who are addicted to this other world, and mainly children. They're addicted to it already.
Mm-hmm.
So the more stress you can pump up in the world, the more people will go into fantasy. Fantasy by its nature is a healthy thing when it's done in a healthy way.